Hello and welcome to Undead Gaming News, your one-stop shop for all things gaming. I'm your host Zombie, and first up this week we have a bunch of announcements from CD Projekt Red, as they've announced a few upcoming games. The first, codenamed Projekt Sirius, is being created by Molasses Flood, which is a US studio, and the game is being described as an innovative take on the Witcher universe, telling an unforgettable story for the Witcher fans and new audiences. The second game is codenamed Projekt Canis Majoris. It's confirmed to be an open-world RPG set in the Witcher universe, and that's being developed by a third-party outfit which is made up of ex-Witcher veterans. And then there's Projekt Polaris, which is a story-driven open-world RPG built on the legacy of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, and that's currently in the pre-production stage of development, and that's being developed by CDPR themselves, with a team of over 150 people. All three of those games are aimed to be released over a 6-year period after the release of Projekt Polaris. CDPR also announced a minor update on their upcoming story-driven expansion for Cyberpunk 2077, which is in the final production phase, and it's being developed by over 350 people on the CDPR team. It's referred to as Phantom Liberty, which we saw a brief trailer for not too long ago, and they've also announced a full sequel to Cyberpunk 2077, codenamed Projekt Orion. The only info about that so far is that it's being developed by the CDPR team and will explore the full power and potential of the Cyberpunk universe. Since their ad for Projekt Orion states that it's to be developed by the CDPR team, rather than the fact that it's begun development, makes me think that once Phantom Liberty's done, then that team will work on Projekt Orion. They also announced a brand new IP as well. For now it's known as Projekt Hadar, and it's being developed internally by a small strike team. So CD Projekt Red have definitely got a lot of things going on. There's also the remaster for The Witcher 3 coming at some point as well that they're working on, but they provided no update on that. Also in the news we have Overwatch 2, because after it released it had tons of issues, particularly with servers, and Blizzard have now released a blog post talking about the whole situation, where they outlined all of the issues and how they plan to rectify them. With queue issues, server crashes and stability problems, they said, "There are several areas where we are working to improve stability. We've patched a server that's critical to the login experience, and this change has increased login reliability. Beyond queues, we're in progress with another server update that will reduce the occurrences of players being disconnected once they're already in the game. The player database is being overloaded, which cascades and causes a backup in the login system, which eventually leads to some people being dropped out of queues or being unable to log in at all. We're continuing to add nodes to ease the pressure of the player database. The process of adding nodes requires replication of data, which inherently adds pressure to an already stressed system, so we're doing it slowly to not cause any further disruption as devs and engineers work through the separate issues. We are also currently throttling the queues in order to protect the player database as much as we can while we scale. This feels bad in the short term, but once it's done, will greatly improve the experience for players across multiple fronts moving forward." They also talked about the mandatory SMS login feature. As they've decided to make some changes, they've made the decision to remove the phone number requirements for a majority of existing Overwatch players. Any Overwatch player with a connected Battle.net account, which includes all players that have played since the 9th of June 2021, will not have to provide a phone number to play. Accounts that were not connected to the Battle.net as well as new accounts will still have to meet SMS Protect requirements to ensure that they're protecting their community against cheating. If a player is caught engaging in destructive behaviour, their account may be banned, whether they have a new account or not. There was also a number of reports claiming to have missing items, which appears to be down to a UI bug, as half of the cases have not completed the account merge due to not being given this on-screen prompt. Partial UI fix has been rolled out for that, however. They are still working on fixes for additional UI issues. In the other half of the reported cases for this issue, things are just taking a little longer than expected for items from the original Overwatch to transfer and populate into Overwatch 2. In all cases, no player data has been wiped or lost, and they have a client-side fix for that cannot be deployed until next week. So they're exploring server-side fixes and will provide more updates as information becomes available. There was also a separate issue with account merge where players who had merged their console and PC account were experiencing problems logging in. This bug is now resolved, and there's also an issue being reported of locked characters that shouldn't be locked. These cases are almost certainly related to the new first-time user experience incorrectly being applied to existing players. Relogging into the game resolves the issue in most cases, but if you're still experiencing that issue after relogging in, then they recommend you check the support website for further information or open a ticket with them. And that just about sums up everything they had to say in that blog. So we now move over to Google Stadia, which has now announced plans to shut down the Stadia cloud gaming service, despite a representative for Google not too long ago refuting claims that the end of the service was near, and stating that more games are still coming to the Stadia. But the service will now come to an end on the 18th of January 2023, due to a lack of traction with gamers. Google has promised refunds to players who've purchased its Stadia controller as well as any games or add-on content. It said it estimates those refunds will be completed mid-January, but it seems that there was definitely a huge lack of communication about this plan, as even Google employees had no idea that it was coming. Like Google engineer Peter Elst, who said, "It was a weird experience starting your workday and realizing that the feature you've been working on for 6+ months and we're launching soon is no longer relevant. If nothing else, it does put things in perspective, onwards and upwards." But it's not just the Google employees who were surprised by the news, but also game development teams, as they found out the news essentially at the same time that it was being reported to the public. As one indie dev tweeted, "Oh boy, very happy to see months of my work going in the bin again. I sure do love game development." So they definitely could have done a much better job at communicating the fact that they was ending the service, not only to their own employees, but also to the development teams working on games for the service. But also in the news we have Company of Heroes 3, which has now been delayed again, and will now be released on February 23rd, 2023. The reason given is that the dev team will be focused entirely on fixing bugs, tweaking mechanics and polishing up what's already there. Over the next 4 months, they will not be adding any new features. It's just a matter of tuning and polishing everything to deliver the experience that they wanted. We also have a new update for the Activision Blizzard deal, as Brazil's Administrative Council for Economic Defense has now approved the merger with no restrictions. A statement from them reads, "Considering the huge popularity of Call of Duty, it's reasonable to infer that if Activision Blizzard games were no longer available on Sony consoles, PlayStation users could decide to migrate to Xbox or even a PC, to continue having access to the franchise games. On the other hand, it's also reasonable to assume that if upcoming Call of Duty games become exclusive to Microsoft's ecosystem, players loyal to the PlayStation brand could simply abandon the series, migrating their demand to other games available on their favourite console. Despite this, one cannot rule out the possibility that Microsoft may deem potentially profitable to adopt an exclusivity strategy on Activision Blizzard games, even if a decision in this direction could result in the sacrifice of a relevant part of sales, users, and even Call of Duty's popularity. This is because, in theory, such a strategy could contribute to boosting Xbox sales, expanding the Game Pass subscriber base, and strengthening the network effects on the Microsoft ecosystem, in order to offset any loss of revenue from the sales of games on the short term. The verdict goes on to state that it believes exclusive content has been very important for the competition in the console market, and one of the main factors for PlayStation and Nintendo's positions as market leaders. It is recognised that part of the users of PlayStation consoles could decide to migrate to Xbox in the event that Activision Blizzard games, and especially Call of Duty, become exclusive to the Microsoft ecosystem. However, the Council does not believe that such a possibility represents in itself a risk to competition in the console market as a whole. Also in the news we have Games Workshop, as they've decided to run a giveaway for 2 custom-built PCs to anyone who's subscribed to the Warhammer Plus service. Whether they are new or existing subscribers, they'll get a chance to win one of 2 gaming PCs. One of them is in a case decorated with the Total War Warhammer 3 art to celebrate the beta of Immortal Empires, while the other features Grey Knights from the Warhammer 40,000 Chaos Gate Demon Hunters. As well as a chance to win one of those, everyone subscribed by the end of the month will also score the Ogre Kingdoms DLC for Total War Warhammer 3, and a copy of Hexgrid strategy game Warhammer 40k Gladius Relics of War, and those are being handed out as Steam keys on November the 1st. The Warhammer 40k Chaos Gate PC features a MSI GeForce RTX 3080, a Ventus 3X graphics card, an Intel Core i7-12700KF CPU, a 500GB SSD, a 1TB memory, and 32GB of RAM, while the Total War Warhammer 3 PC features an NZXT H510 tempered glass case, an Intel i9-12900K CPU, a Gigabyte Z690 Aorus Elite AX D5 motherboard, a 32GB DDR5 RAM, a Corsair Hydro H100X CPU cooler, an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 30 graphics card, a 1TB Samsung 970 EVO Plus SSD, and a 750-watt power supply. As well as subscribing by the end of October to be eligible to win the Chaos Gate Demon Hunters rig, you'll also need to follow Chaos Gate on Twitter. And for a chance to win the Total War Warhammer 3 PC, you'll need to follow Total War on Twitter. You don't need to link your Warhammer Plus account, as they'll apparently check it at a later date. The winners will be drawn on November the 2nd. I would assume that they're going to request a screenshot of proof that you're actually following them, if you're selected. Over on Nintendo's side of things, they're reportedly cracking down on uncensored nudity and adult themes in the Switch eShop. That's according to publisher Gamozumi, who has put out numerous adult-themed Switch games in recent years. However, according to the company, its next hentai-themed game has been rejected by Nintendo because of an allegedly refreshed stance on adult content in the eShop. They said, "We've received an answer from Nintendo and now we have confirmation that they do not allow uncensored boobs on their consoles now. Basically, obscene content could damage their brand and infringe its policies. This means that now all games with boobs, nudity, should be censored, and that's why they rejected our game in the first place. That's all the info we have so far. We'll try to send the games without nudity for approval again, and see what they say and update the thread if necessary. That's just about all we have this week. If you have any thoughts on anything that was discussed this week, please leave it in the comment section below as always, and I'll see you next week. Goodbye.